We're smiling today
We are.
because it's the end of a very long week.
It has been a long week.
Deep breath, America. Deep breath, world. We're heading to a better place, a brighter day. And someday we won't have to be wearing masks. How about that? Summer and Cynthia here to talk about the election of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to lead the free world, the United States of America. It's been, there's a lot to think about, no question. And it's a conversation I've been looking forward to having with Summer at this stage, ever since she and I started thinking, well, you know what, let's do this YouTube thing and see if it works. Sure. Summer's got a lot to say, and I can't wait to hear it because it is a moment in history. And as a white person, I'm obviously processing it through my filters and my experiences and my everything. But you know what? It is a moment in history that's only what we have because the full country came up, stood together, and made a statement. So without further ado, I've got some questions for you, Summer, because I think the world has questions. So
and I'm going to have questions for you too, lady.
So set us straight, lady. Set us straight. So you've got a family of women, I understand.
Yes.
When you were growing up, what role did politics play in the conversations, not with the men in your family, but the women in your family?
To be honest, there was not a lot of conversation about politics. I understood my parents voted and considered themselves Democrats. And my father's sister, my auntie, actually identifies as a Republican. And I do have another early childhood memory that just crept in. Pardon my hesitation or pause. But I also had another cousin, God rest her soul, died several decades ago. But anyway, she was an eclectic type. And she also identified as Republican. And but there weren't a lot of concrete conversations about policies or particular politicians, if you will. And yeah, there wasn't, to be quite honest. So I can't say. And then naturally, as you grow up, you tend to adopt what your parents exposed to you, no matter the capacity, whether there were extensive conversations about politics or just passive times when you recall your parents doing things or talking about the election in general. But I did grow up becoming a Democrat because mom and dad, just like you adopt your religious beliefs based on your parents and your upbringing. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of political persuasion from a family perspective. So,
And in the last few years, have you all had conversations and
oh my goodness. Now, of course, in the last 20 years, once I become an adult and aware and paying attention to elections and the importance of such things, yes, there have been more conversations. But I'm going to be honest. In the last, definitely in the era of Obama, I became a lot more involved on a deeper level of politics and understanding how things work. And so, my mother and I, as we've gotten closer just from a natural evolution of a mother daughter relationship, we started to talk about politics more and understanding her perspective and mine as well. And they don't veer off too much. Uh, but I do lean a little left than she does. But it's over being in adulthood that's really push the need to have conversations. Um, Surprisingly, and my mother and I have kind of have a joke, reoccurring joke of wanting to engage with my aunt, who is the Republican, but how do you do it? Yes. And so I want to have a conversation, a meaningful conversation, to really understand why my aunt affiliates with the Republican Party or considers herself a Republican, and not so much to change her mind at all, It's really just to understand, especially being an outlier in our family, if you will. Um, I know immigration was a subject matter that was important to her that I've heard in passing, but I want to, and it kind of goes into we're not a monolith, right? In terms of African American Blacks, let me not use politically correct terms that I don't naturally use myself. But just like every other ethnic group, it varies in degrees and in how people align with things. But yeah, it as far as the family is concerned, there are not a lot of conversations about politics. And as I admit that, I would love to change that because I certainly, oddly enough, have these conversations with friends and even strangers for that matter. But I don't talk about it necessarily on a deep scale with my family. So,
All right. So yesterday, last evening, we certainly watched here in our household the video from Delaware and that historic, but kind of sad. I mean, it was just such a small group and such a kind of it was an unproduction. It was felt like a little bit of a letdown given the significance, but certainly everybody understands why the circumstances and the event staging was the way it was.
well,
What
let's
were
take
you think?
a little bit. Let's take a pause. So this week, the longest week ever, right? I mean,
Yes.
it felt like 10 years just this past week alone. And it was agonizing, so much so where I've always toyed with giving myself a news diet.
Mhm.
But I really did it this week because literally I was going crazy, just with the speculation and no answers and saying the same damn thing over and over. I had to put news on pause. And so for you, I mean, how were you managing working through Tuesday to Saturday afternoon when things became final?
Um, about the same you were. I had put myself on a news diet weeks ago.
Hmm.
Um, it just was more information. I knew that it was going to be a long time coming, that the counts were going to be slower. I have, I guess I understood, or I had a sense that based on the fact that on election day, we hadn't heard much mayhem going on at polling sites. And none of the worry that we had around violence had happened. So I guess I was kind of thinking the process needed to play itself out, and I certainly did not need to listen to pundits fill the hours on TV. I've never really been one to participate in that sort of national agonizing, or in some ways the national minutia grabbing of big events.
Right.
Even after 9/11, when much of America just was mourning and had to sit in front of the TV and just sort of digest and feel it all. There was just too much going on. So in that respect, I just did not have the time and the mental bandwidth to do it. This time I was out, I was doing long walks, and I was reading books, and talking to you, and just processing living life, kind of circa 1992, when we didn't let the electronics dominate us.
Yeah, same here. So we enter the weekend assuming we will still not know anything, and then long and behold, it's called, yeah, a Saturday late morning, early afternoon, and it was just this sense or feeling of relief. I think we all, at least the majority who voted for the Biden Harris ticket, felt a moment of just a sigh and okay, there is light at this shit tunnel. And but it was complicated because I was annoyed. Part of what made the whole week hard was the fact that it was so damn close. Here again, America has let me down, and it hurt all over again. how freaking close this was. 70 million people voting for Trump is not something we need to take lightly. And it's not a us versus them situation. It is really understanding how deep the wounds are in this country, that there are still 70 plus million people who are willing to rehire someone that just from a general standpoint didn't do a good job, um, in spite of, you know, the death counts from COVID this year and all of that. So it was dealing with the harsh reality of that. It was ripping a band-aid off a wound that wasn't nearly ready to heal. And so Saturday it was light, it was bright. I know I wanted to get out in the streets with everybody, but and very similar to how it was when we were protesting. But because of COVID, I cannot do mass gatherings. I can't. But I wanted to be with the people. I just wanted to feel that energy. And I love that it was peaceful. It was just a moment of hope for all of us. We needed a win this year out of everything we've been going through in 2020 together. It was this one moment of just, okay, this chapter is ending. Now we can deal with tomorrow, what all things look like, but still basking in Saturday. Um, After acknowledging 70 plus million people who voted, the good news is also other records. You know, just collectively, we exercise our right to vote as a country in record numbers. That is something to be proud of. We all stood up for whatever it was we believed in. Okay. And I'm going to give it to you whether you were for or against the current administration. The bottom line is we all voted and did something. So for that, we could be proud. We can be proud of just the record number of women who are coming into office. You know, it's numbers like 103 Democrats and 32 Republican women. The amount of women of color who are coming into office right now is insane. And I have a note and list of everybody, and I may get to that in a minute. But that's what leaves me hope. So fast forward to Biden and Harris's speech. Seeing her, I mean, I'll be honest, she's the leading reason why I mean, you see my shirt, hello. But she was the leading force behind me voting for Biden. I unapologetically admit that. I also kept championed for her while she was campaigning. That's what I'm trying to say, America. Until the very end, until she decided to stop. And it was an evolution of that, because initially I was back in Elizabeth Warren. I went through a little bit of a cycle, but I also think Elizabeth is great where she is too, you know, and I'm excited to see the cabinet now. I mean, there's so many hopeful things going on, but back to Kamala in the moment. Representation matters. Representation matters. For a seat that has literally been filled by nothing but white men of a certain pedigree, to all of a sudden see this woman unapologetically Black and Indian walk into this space, command the position, and just rise to the occasion, and that the way she's, and we haven't seen obviously nothing yet, but it just makes my heart hum. It is such a moment. I mean, what about you? When you, the visuals, when you saw that, what did that do for you?
I mean, it absolutely touches my heart that because of who she is, uh, she's now able to touch and speak to so many people in this country who have had no one speaking to them. And it might seem like listeners or viewers that we are saying the same thing over and over and over, but she is such a layered individual.
Oh my
She
goodness.
is so articulate, and she knows who she is, and she knows the power of what she says. On the other hand, I think she understands and expects as much of herself as we are all expecting of her.
Absolutely.
I worry about both of them and their safety,
Mhm.
and the kinds of people who might be wandering through those crowds carrying guns, which they maybe are legally entitled, certified to carry, but at this point in time may be rocked by instability
Yeah.
and a certain anger about the outcome. I worry about that a lot. I worried about it with President Obama.
Oh, of course.
There
And
was a period of time when violence was a political answer in this country, and fortunately, we got through that. When you think about how many years it's been peaceful since something devastating, the Gabrielle Giffords um, assault. I mean, I think they really had kind of determined that that young man was not stable to begin with. So
right,
that's not like it was necessarily a political statement.
right.
But we have I think some weeks and months to come. The healing can't happen soon enough.
Correct. And make no mistake, these next 90 days are going to be significantly important. Um, the one thing I will not miss about this entire experience with under this administration, it's just the uncertainty. It was not fun waking up every damn day wondering, what did he say? What did he do today? I look forward to not caring about that seat on a daily basis in terms of optics, and getting back to just governing, right?
Well, governing and also role modeling the behavior that has served this country so well, the
Correct.
behavior and the sense of pride and ownership that we as Americans, whether we were born here or immigrated to here, have, and that is part of the history that we learn. What we're realizing, obviously, is that we learn a very sanitized history, and we have to start focusing on some of the injustices that have been, delivered, and
Yes.
why that was.
Yes.
But that is intellect. It's an education that needs to happen,
Absolutely.
and if it's told appropriately, it's not. Those people are long gone, so we can't do anything to punish them, but we can certainly learn these lessons.
And it's not about vengeance, being vengeful. Uh, it's about learning from the history.
Mhm.
It,
But
it-
but when just getting to the speeches last night, these are
yes,
people who are positive.
correct.
They are knowledgeable about the workings of government, the shortfalls, the shortcomings of government. They understand the systemic inequities that have been built into the system for the past 200 plus years.
Correct.
And they were modeling to everybody else that we can be brave, we can be mature about this. This is not pie in terms of power, that the billionaires need more money on the backs of the workers.
Yeah.
This is trying to get us all back on track to becoming the country that is the beacon of the world for freedoms and opportunity.
I agree. And again, this topic, I'll be honest, and as I try to be always, it's very emotional for me. I'm actually like live time really processing how I felt yesterday. So pardon me if just, there are moments of when I am inarticulate, okay? But I do want to back up to another aggravating thing is, fuck the polls and pollsters. Number one, again, because I felt burned from 2016, I didn't listen to them this time, and yet again, you got it wrong. And I'm not sure who. Well, we kind of know who you're talking to, but I'm hoping this administration, this upcoming administration, does better with centering the heartbeat of the people who put you in power, and that's people of color. In 2016, it was all about the economic anxiety of, the Midwest of the country, aka white people. This time, it became a conversation about suburban women, aka white women, making sure what their state is okay,
Yeah.
as far as frame of mind. And what did we find this time? That white women actually increased their voting for Trump than they did in 2016. And meanwhile, you are not studying or talking to people of color in this country who really are responsible for taking us on a better path. Let me say it that way.
Mhm.
And so, and I'm also seeing conversations already about, you know, coddling the Trump supporters and being forgiving. And before we go there, we've had to put up with the last 4 years of just obnoxious behavior. Okay?
Mean spirited, destructive, obnoxious,
Correct.
unethical, and illegal.
Correct. And I'm not saying an eye for an eye approach, but what I am saying is let's focus on the people who got you here in the first place. And then and honestly, when you do that, when you take care of people of color, and unapologetically, I'm talking about Black women too. When you start taking care of matters that are important to us, it benefits the entire country anyway. So if you focus on living wages, pay gaps, healthcare, everybody benefits. There's no leaving anyone out in those conversations. But I do think now is the time to center it around your most loyal constituents, which are Black people, and again, followed by Native Americans. You guys showed out also this election. I mean, it just, we're trying to save you and us from ourselves, and we don't get to reap the benefits of that. We're taken for granted, and we'll holler back at you guys in 2 or 4 years. And I'm hopeful though, with this administration, we're gonna hold you accountable to what you say. And I have faith and hope in Kamala to be representative of American people and not just one particular demographic, believe it or not. And again, I cannot wait till the cabinet is released. Oh my God. Because I also think that's going to be another victorious moment for us as well, is who he appoints in his cabinet. But
Yes, when the cabinet list comes together, I think what we as America will be able to see is that we have an opportunity that the whole will be greater than the sum of its individual parts. That it's a band of people who are accomplished and care very much about this country and understand the urgency of what 4 years of mayhem has brought us to, a sense of rebuilding, and with this opportunity to rebuild, how to do so in such a way where equity is baked into policies, while at the same time revisiting some of the old stuff. So there is a lot of work to do, as they say. And what I'm hopeful we can do is perhaps bookmark this conversation, because obviously every week we're going to be able to talk a little bit more about national politics and the national pulse, whatever we want to call it.
And one quick thing, I do want to list off a few victorious office run or campaigns.
Absolutely.
I want to shout them out, starting with Cori Bush. She is the first Missouri Black congresswoman, okay? And she started off as an activist. It was the uprising of Ferguson. So again, people get called to these positions in various ways and capacity. You don't have to come from a certain pedigree to do this. If you feel compelled to do the work, go for it. New Mexico, first state to elect all women of color in the House of Representatives. Shout out to you guys. Yvette Harrell is the first Republican Native American woman elected to Congress. Keisha, we're celebrating everybody, okay? Keisha Ram, first woman of color elected to Vermont's Senate. Sarah McBride, first out trans person in Senate history, okay? And we've got Stephanie Byers, who's the first out trans person of color elected to state legislator. Marilyn Strickland, first Korean and Black woman to serve in Washington state. Cynthia Loomis, first woman to serve in Wyoming. Taylor Small is the first out trans person elected to Vermont state legislator. And last but certainly not least, Marie Turner, first non-binary and Muslim state representative for the great state of Oklahoma. So there are so many silver linings in this moment. Any and everybody, if you feel compelled to run, do so to make a change. And if you don't, just support those who are doing it. But everybody deserves a seat at the table. So from that perspective, America, job well done for being more reflective of who we are as a people.
Amen. Amen. So we're going to keep tracking those women. We're going to talk about the other women who influenced the outcome and are certainly going to be influencers, whether in cabinet positions or other going forward, including Summer, you and I are going to have to talk about Stacey Abrams, no relation, but Stacey Abrams she's a maker.
And we need to focus on Georgia next. It is not done. All efforts now is Georgia.
All right. What's the word as we close out this episode of the Summer and Cynthia show?
Never lose hope. Better days are always ahead, people.
One word.
I can't do anything in one word. One word. Love.
All right.
Your word.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go ahead and subscribe to us, this channel. We're just going to keep talking about this stuff, sharing it with you. And if you've got ideas or you have comments about the election, America, politics, whatever, shoot us a line at the address below, and we'll incorporate that into one of our future episodes.
Bye, Trump.
Peace out.